Hey, welcome to your next best step with Brett Cockrell, the locker room for purpose-driven leaders. This is where we slow down, reflect, and we take our next best step through real stories, practical strategies, and rooted leadership wisdom. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, even the best leaders need a coach in their corner. Hey friends, welcome back to your Next Best Step podcast, the Leaders Locker Room, where we slow down, get real, and get rooted so we can take care and take our next best step. Today, man, it is a special treat. I've got my brother Jay Harris with me today. He is a creative, a businessman. He's a pastor, a husband, a father of 11.
11, yes, sir.
Did I say that right? 11.
Yeah, yes, sir.
And they all got the same mommy, and which is awesome. Jay's life is a masterclass in leadership, intentionality, building a home culture that actually is shaping kingdom leaders. We're going to be talking creativity, calling, fatherhood, pastoring in the hood, leadership in the trenches, and the unique way God grows us when we stay curious. But real quick, before we jump into that, I'm opening the doors right now to the 26 is coming quick 21-day accelerator. If you want to start 2026 with clarity, courage, and a leadership plan that actually works, this is your shot. I'll tell you more at the end, but you can grab your spot at bcleadershipco.com. All right, man, let's get into it. Jay, man, welcome to the locker room today. I know you're down in the hill. You're walking around. Yeah. I see sunshine out your back door.
Yes, right? Indeed.
Man, I got the garage door down. I got heaters on in here. Woo! But hey, our Bills won yesterday.
Oh, yeah, salute. Yeah.
How'd you boys do?
I think our Jags pulled it off yesterday too. Whatever.
I saw that.
A little iffy out here, but they did something yesterday. Yeah,
I know it, man. Like, wow. Yeah. Okay, still in the hunt.
Yes, indeed.
So, well, hey, Jay, man, thanks for coming on, hanging out. We've met. Gosh, I don't know if we met originally in Philly at Thriving Conference, or if we met at CCDA.
That's what I was about to say. I feel like it was CCDA for some reason.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know which one was first, but I know that it was all kind of mixed together. We got a mutual friend, shout out Charlie Mitchell, who's been on the podcast. Charlie's an OG. He's a great connector. And man, from our first conversation to the current day, I just love being able to hang out, hear what life is like in your neck of the woods. Man, real quick, what is bringing you joy right now in this season? We're about ready to step into Thanksgiving, but what's bringing you some joy right now, Jay?
Man, I would say definitely my kids. You know, it's funny. I was just at FAMU preaching last week, FAMU College, and they asked me the same question. And it's my kids, bro. I think, you know, especially as I'm getting older and slowing down a little bit, I'm just kind of in awe of them. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I look at the little ones and I'm like, yo, this is amazing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Just, you know, all the little attitudes, just everything, bro. I look around, I'm just like, man, I'm crazy blessed. Yeah. Amazing children or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And all the complexities that come with them. Some of them, you know, straight A's, some of them got areas they struggle in, but I love the struggle too. You know, they're all amazing, you know? Yep.
So 11 kids, what's the breakdown from what age to what age?
So 28 to 3 years old, and it's 6 girls, 5 boys, and right now we still got 9 in the house with us right now. It's a lituation around here, man. It never stops, you know.
Oh man, that is beautiful. Wow. So your kids is bringing you joy, man. Jay, can you give us a little bit of your origin story? I know you've grown up most of your time in Ville, but you got a little New
Yeah.
Jersey roots. But just give us a little background of who Jay is, and before we jump into the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So originally born in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey. Came back to Jacksonville when I was a kid. My mom and my father were having problems. My mom was trying to do a getaway. My pops was a bit abusive, so we ended up in Jacksonville. Stayed here till I was about seventh, no, excuse me, eighth grade. My ninth grade year, I went to Orlando. Um, Acting crazy, robbing and causing problems. So, made a couple trips to juvenile and all that kind of stuff. My mom wanted to get up out of there. So my senior year, I came back to Jacksonville, finished up, went back to Jersey for a little bit. I knew I was going to die up there even quicker than Florida. You know what I'm saying? And so I headed back to Jacksonville for a little bit. And went back to Orlando for a little bit, bounced back to Jacksonville and met my wife. And we were just dating, man. She begged me to go to church one day. Um, I was, wilding out in the street. I had some beef going on. And so I said, yeah, I'll go to church with you or whatever. Like she had to beg me or whatever, but I finally was like, I'll go. And I was in the middle of
That's
plotting a
what
murder.
happens when you're dating pretty girls, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
They'll,
yeah,
they'll
yeah,
take you
definitely.
places you wouldn't normally go.
Yeah, yeah, straight up. So I went to church and I was in the middle of plotting a murder at that time, like out of revenge, for something or whatever with this guy. And so I'm watching him during the week. I'm watching his house. I'm planning the whole thing or whatever. I'm seeing him when he comes and goes from work, the whole thing. Same time I'm going to church. And I went to church for about a month or so, whatever, month and a half, maybe 2 months. And then it was like, man, what you gonna turn to a church boy? You gonna handle this thing? And I was like, man, we're gonna handle this thing. So I'm sitting in church one Sunday. I'm planning on knocking this guy off on a Wednesday. And I leave out of the church doing the altar call because I hated to hear the altar call. Man,
Mhm.
it enraged me. Told my girl, yeah, let's hurry up and beat the traffic out of here. And that's how I would get out of the altar call. So we went to go walk out of the door. I made about 10 steps, man, and I heard God clear as day. And he said, you're gonna die this week. And I stopped in my tracks. She turned around, she said, Jay, she goes, you all right? I said, you didn't hear that? And I said, God, I said, an angel? I was so afraid to say God's name out of my mouth, I switched it to angel. And she looked at me, she said, Jay, are you high today? I said, nah, maybe that's what's wrong. You know what I'm saying? I said, maybe that's what's wrong, whatever. And she said, what'd you hear him say? And I went to repeat it and I started crying like a baby. And we're outside of the church, and she said, well, what do you want to do? I said, we gotta go back in there. And I went back in there and I prayed with this guy. And
Come
I
on.
couldn't, I was so condemned. I couldn't receive what he was saying. I just was thinking like, bro, you don't know what me and my people do, whatever, like, and then for some reason, he started talking about being an alcoholic. And at the time, I was a ferocious alcoholic, man. I dropped to the liquor store slobbering down my shirt, bro. Like, just like that's how bad it had me. And when he spoke and he told me that God freed him for that, I told him, I said, let's say the prayer again. We basically started over. And the thing about it was that I said the prayer a million times growing up, but I always wanted God to fix my life. This time I was like, I need you to take the old Jay, kill him. Take the old one, kill him. Do whatever you got to do, God. I'm like, I need a whole new deal. Like, I need you to take my heart. I like this wicked stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, but I'm giving up to you. Take it. Like, don't fix it. Make a whole new life. And
Wow.
God been with me ever since, man. He's just grace and mercy. Just follow me. Mind blowing. Pull me out the depths of despair. And I'm talking about that bottom where you be like, can anybody get saved out of this kind of pit? And he came and got me. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah,
Dude, man, that makes a lot of sense, Jay, because that's really from what I've known about you over the last decade. That's really who you've showed up for.
oh man,
You're in
thank
the
you, brother.
streets,
Yeah,
right? Like that's
yeah,
you. What God did for you, you now are doing for others.
yeah, yeah, most
And
definitely.
man, it's not a transactional thing, it's a relational thing. It's
Yeah,
not like, hey, you've got an agenda for somebody, it's like I don't have an agenda. I want to help you. I want
Yeah.
to save your life, man.
Yeah. Brett, it's like I look at it like, the word God says is like, he said, love the way I've loved you. And I just always tell my church, I'm like, man, God don't we deal with our trauma, we deal with our stuff and everything. And I'm like, and it's all real and we need to respect it and we need to take responsibility for it. But God sometimes is sitting on the sideline like, yo, that stuff is something to you. It's nothing to me. If you let
Mm.
me get a hold of that brokenness, I will take it and I don't just set the score to even. I'm gonna heal you. And then I'm gonna give you a superpower and I'm gonna use you to heal others. And that's how I look at it. I'm like, all
Yeah.
them things the enemy thought he's gonna take a brother out with. I'm like, now we out here preaching the gospel, say, like that stuff made the way we share the gospel unique.
Yeah.
And we understand the language, we understand the scars. Like, oh, you feel like you're in despair? I've been there too, bro. I know what it is. So it's God has given us, he's not only healed, but he's given a superpower to serve with it. And so yeah, man, we make the enemy pay for trying to do God's people in,
Dude, man, I love that. Jay, you're a pastor, but it's in a unique context.
Yeah.
It's not the traditional kind of church pastor. You've got a unique context and story. You mind sharing a little bit about how you guys do church and the value
Yeah.
out of all of that and where you're at with it, also the context of it?
Yeah, most definitely. So I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. We're inside of a neighborhood that is called Brentwood. Brentwood is probably, it's either number one or it's number two in the bottom for neighborhoods statistically. When you talk about, infant mortality, violence, sickness, it's a food desert. There's no grocery stores. I mean, there's no banks around, that kind of thing. Whatever. Transportation is extremely low. The block my church sits on is called Pearl Street neighborhood. They call it Pearl World, and it's an economical desert. When you look down up and down the block, you don't see one name brand business that you would know of at all. It's probably the last place most people would say they would want to plant a church and feel like it's going to survive. And man, it has been. It's the happiest I've ever been as a pastor. And another thing too is the community has so much stuff going on. I mean, I pulled up to the church the other day and it was yellow tape right there at our corner. Like, I mean, if somebody had got killed or whatever, and that's normal. So stuff happens, but if you get past that outward aesthetic, man, it's beautiful people. It's grandmothers. It's families trying to figure it out and stuff or whatever. It's moms concerned about their babies and their kids. And,
Mm.
one of the things I always tell people, I'm like, we didn't come to save the neighborhood. Jesus was here way before us. Like,
Mm.
there's been praying people before us. We just joining in to what God is doing. And we're also students learning from the people and learning from the people that have been there before. Um, but learning from the community and as a church being teachable, it's changed our rhythms up.
Mm.
And for me, I'll speak to it two ways. From a leadership standpoint, it took a lot of bravery and courage to kind of break tradition. Um, it seems logical because you're like, no, this is what's needed. But still, there's this church religiosity that we have where we're like, no, it has to be like this, and
Right.
this. And I just was like, this, and this doesn't is not the most efficient for this community. And I had to make a decision that we're going to do what's best and let whoever's for it stay and who's not go and whatnot. But what we do is we meet in the building twice a month and do a traditional service, worship. We baptize somebody on Sunday, all stuff like that. But then
Yeah, I saw that on your post. Saw you had
yeah,
a
yeah, most
baptism. Yeah.
definitely. Yep. That's one of my homies' daughters I used to run in
Did
the
you?
street with.
Wow.
And yeah, man. And so either twice or three times a month we're in the service, we're in the building like normal. But then we meet is three other expressions. One is inside of our neighborhood park, which you could literally see from our church building. We meet in the park, our kids go crazy playing on the playground. We hit the streets, we walk the neighborhood, and we pray for the neighborhood. And through that's part of our building that bridge to the
Mm.
community or whatever. Because man, we roll up on people getting out of jail. They see us praying on the corner, like, yo, you praying? Yo, I just got out of jail. Pray for me real quick. Or couples in the middle of disputes, and they like, man, we about to kill each other. Like, can y'all come pray? And so, man, it's almost like it's almost like Jesus in the streets. Like, yeah, I've been waiting for y'all to get out here, man. Like, we run into the craziest stuff just, out there. And um, so we do that. I'm attached to a nonprofit called Second Mile. I've been on the board for them for years. They've been in the community over 20 years. CCDA influence, and whatnot. They've been teaching me for the longest or whatever. And so love to serve on the board with them, but they're what brought me to the community. And I was in and out, coming to serve, dealing with the kids. And I'm like, nah, we bringing our church over here and we tying our leg to y'all's nonprofit. We both going to make each other stronger. And so because we're in a food desert, they have a garden that they run and they literally feed kids in their program. They have the elderly and everything in their programs. And so if they call me and they're like, yo, Pastor Jay, the garden is tore up. We need some maintenance. I'm like, all right, we're doing service in the garden. I'll preach right in the garden, and then we get to work right in the garden. And if we're not doing that, we do a block cleanup. So we might pick a block and say, this is where we meet, and we'll preach on that block, clean up that block, or whatever the case is. Or if we got, some people in the neighborhood, maybe some elderly folks, and they're like, we got washers and dryers, we can't move them. We got stuff that needs to be done. Then we go in the community, we go handle that. And I'll do a short word because, man, you know what it is. COVID taught us we could preach anywhere.
Anywhere.
We were meeting anywhere. And so
anytime.
Once we got a building, a couple of my people were like, yo, this is great. I'm glad we got a building again. And we back in the building. Pastor Jay, don't let us get stuck. We free now. Don't take us back in there. So we've been free ever since, moving and grooving. And it's been beautiful.
Man, I love that. We've mentioned CCD a couple of times. That's Christian Community Development Association.
Oh yeah.
We're like-hearted and minded in that, Jay. I know.
Yeah.
Dr. John Perkins, Coach Wayne Gordon, and so many national leaders, Dr. Brenda Salter McNeil, and just just so many that have had influence. Leroy Barber, Noel Castellanos, all these men and women, and they've literally changed my whole world perspective, flipped my whole perspective. But I actually missed this on the last episode, talking about one of the things I learned in the first breakout session that I had in 2008 down in Miami. Went to the conference down there. We had just bought the location up here. We were in the hood. Like what in the world am I doing? No clue. And somebody says, you need to go to the CCDA conference. I thought it was an after-school program kind of conference. I went down there and I thought, well, let me do the pre-conference session, 8 Essentials of CCDA, taught by Coach Wayne Gordon. Listen, when I went there, I had never heard of CCDA. I'd never heard of John Perkins, never heard of Wayne Gordon, never heard of any of these people. And
blew your mind, didn't it?
Oh, I go in there and Coach gets up there and he starts telling his story. And he says, and there's a lot I won't go into, but he said this. He said, we kind of have three, when it comes to location, we have kind of three different people that we're talking to when it comes to be in the context of, the neighborhood. And there's relocators, there's returners, and remainers. And if you're a relocator, if you are somebody that's relocating in an under-resourced, underprivileged, underappreciated community, I'm begging you to do this before you do anything else. You need to listen to the community. So many people who relocate, whether you're pastors, nonprofits, whatever, you come into a neighborhood like this and you think you know what the issues are, and invariably you don't. And so you listen. And so I'm like, and he goes, and this is what listening means. This is the rhythm of listening. You listen, you reflect, and then you respond. He says, but most people do the opposite. You come in, you relocate, and you respond because you think you know it. A couple years into it, you don't have any workers. Everybody, your support's gone, and now you're reflecting. Well, maybe the Lord wasn't in on this, right, in the first place. And then you might ask a question and you might listen because you're in desperate places. Don't do it that way. He
Straight up.
says, and so you, Jay, in that, like you've been in Jacksonville most all your life. Why would you go into a community like that and still be curious enough to listen and see what that specific community, why would you do that as a leader?
Yeah, so one is seeing enough ministries do it backwards, exactly like you said. And also, even with my proximity to different communities and different things like that, still realizing that I'm foolish enough to make the same mistake. And that the muscle of remaining humble and teachable is a necessity. It's a necessity. Breck, are you picking that noise up at all?
I'm not.
Okay, all right, awesome. All right, we got a TV in here that's acting up and it just turns on and it turned on. So I wanted to make sure
No,
my
I'm
bad.
not. I'm not
but
picking it up.
yeah, but yeah, so just knowing that we need to remain teachable. And so and once again, that connection we have with Second Mile, the nonprofit, I mean, they keep CCDA stuff right in front of their face all the time. So we're breathing it. And so they gave me that same counsel. Jay, make sure you listen to the community when you come in, and they, and they'll correct me if I'm off or whatever, which I appreciate and I'm super grateful for. But I remember I grabbed one of the young boys in the neighborhood when I first got there before we did any renovations to the building, and I just sat down and talked to him. And I'm like, tell me about these churches in this neighborhood. And he was just like, he said, I mentioned him because I called him the mayor of the neighborhood. He's a young boy, he got shot up in the neighborhood, everything. I love him to death or whatever. And he said, yeah, these churches, they come in the neighborhood and they come in, they go in their building, they come out, and he's like, if you do run into them, they talk to you like you don't belong in your own neighborhood.
Mm.
And so I just listened. I wanted to defend the church while he was talking, but I wanted to hear all of the ugly, all of the ugly. And I just took notes and I said, we whatever he tells me, we're going the opposite way. And it's another thing too with CCDA. I remember when I went up there for their tour, and I'm looking at what they've done. It was their 40th year. And I'm
Right.
looking at what they've accomplished inside of Lawndale. And I asked Coach, I said, how in the world did y'all do this? And he didn't answer it. So we went to lunch and came back, and we're in another question session. So I get one of the guys from my church. I said, yo, ask him the question again. I need to know the answer. So he kind of catches on like, okay, y'all trying to hit me with the same question and y'all are together. And he goes, you're trying to figure out who the mastermind is here, like who came up with all the strategy. And he said this, and I'll never forget. He goes, everything you see is something the neighborhood told us to do. He goes, there is no mastermind here. We were serving the neighborhood, and the neighborhood would express what they needed. And it's not even like we knew what to do, but we knew how to pray, and we knew how to go ask for whatever money or dream of it. And he's like, even their social work and their lawyers they have to fight cases for the community. So man, we've been praying for this for 23 years. We prayed for somebody to come lead it. We had this idea 23 years ago. And I saw just the long-term faithfulness and brilliance. But when he said there is no mastermind here, it came from serving. All of the creativity, the ideas, the dreams came out the community, and they guided it.
Inside, yeah.
Oh man, I was like, okay, I get it. So yeah, that's
Well,
how
that's
we.
that,
Yeah,
that's Coach. I mean, I've
yeah.
had the privilege to be able to ask him the very same thing. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
he's like, he's not going to take credit.
Yeah,
And that is so unlike most leaders that we see today.
yeah.
And can we just be honest? That's kind of what we see the way pastors lead, right?
Yep.
In all over the country. And I'm like, um, and one of the things that I'm a part of a story brand, Business Made Simple, Donald Miller, and what in messaging, right? And one of the things that we talk about is whether whoever we're serving, we're not the heroes. They are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're the guides.
Yep.
And so for you, Jay, man, you didn't roll up into that hood thinking that you were the hero. You just listen to this kid. You
Yeah.
elevated this kid to a level that you were willing to listen and learn and
Yeah.
reflect and respond accordingly. That dude's the hero,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's imagine, well, you're seeing it. You're allowing the community, not Jay, as talented and all that you are and your team, like you're allowing the community to be the hero.
Yeah. Yeah. Most and you know what, Breck, that is some, just for our listeners, for people to get a real picture of it. My building sits on the corner of 25th and Pearl Street, and there's a building twice the size diagonal from me. And the nonprofit that we're connected to, Second Mile, they are on 31st. I could see them if I look up the block. But like the neighborhood, we're like, man, if we could get across from each other. And so this opportunity came to buy the building, but it had a timeline on it. We had to raise, like, I'm talking about like $320,000. And the guy was like, you got 3 months, right? And we in the hood. We're very forward facing in the hood. So we don't have a whole lot of rich church connections or anything like that.
Yeah.
So if it's gonna come, it's gonna be a faith move. So I pulled the board together. I said, because I saw it first, and I hit him with the whole, I hit him with the Patrick Swayze, man. The nobody puts baby in the corner or whatever. I said, Second Mile been in the basement forever. We got the nobody puts baby in the corner. You know what I'm saying? I said, yo, it's time to get our own building. But the thing is, we bought one of the young boys who, you know what I'm saying? He's been in the program since he was a kid, and he's older now, but still young. But he sat in that meeting. He's not on the board. We brought two of them. The other one I told you about, the mayor. We
Mhm.
brought them into the meeting, on the board meeting, and we're sitting here, trying to make a decision or whatever. And we turn it to them, and one of them goes off. He said, "Do you understand what would have happened to my life if y'all would have not been in this community? Like, do you understand what y'all mean to these kids in this community?" And he said, "Ain't no question, y'all got to get the building." And
Mm.
that was the end of the meeting. You know what I'm saying? That was the end of the meeting. We was
Right.
like, what are we going to do? Push against that? Like, the streets have
Mm.
spoken, and so we set out to do whatever we had to do. And by the grace of God, we raised that money. But that he made that decision. And so now every time we tell the story, every time we have fundraisers, we always tell the story that he's the reason that we bought this building.
Yeah.
And he's the catalyst.
Wow, man. I love that, man. Jay, I know that, pastoring is your heartbeat. You love, like you mixed it up. There's no green room for you.
Yeah.
You're right there, man. That's what I love about you. But that's not all that you do. I mean, you're a creative. You've started your own business, right? Like what? Tell us a little bit about that. What inspired that? Why do what makes you curious about that whole world?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I had a clothing brand I started in 2010 called Straight and Narrow. And it grew pretty quickly or whatever. It's very much, close to the line with Christian hip hop movement. And then 2011, I opened up a brick and mortar store in downtown Jacksonville, Straight and Narrow Boutique. And, it was during that time that I really got, I started feeling this calling towards really like pastoring in the church, because I was doing ministry in the store. We were feeding the homeless in the store. We were partnering with organizations and doing, we were giving out sneakers. I was connecting with sneaker trade shows. And I'd be like, yo, let me advertise and set up some boxes for these sneakerheads to come bring their old sneakers. Cause they get a scuff or whatever and they think they're garbage. And I'm like, no, I got cats out here barefooted in front of my store or whatever. So doing all kind of stuff like that. So he did Straight and Narrow. Straight and Narrow still around, like, but I'm kind of landing the plane on it, and I feel like something else, like, because my devotion has been so much in the church, but I feel like there's more kind of branding things that'll come out of that. I own a company called Harrison Go Garment Printing with my wife. We have this body butter that my wife makes called we call it Swoo body butter, but she's had 15 pregnancies total or whatever, and delivered 10. Mine's my oldest son, Zion, or whatever. And so we have 11, but she has no stretch marks. And it's this cream she uses, and it's amazing for eczema. So we're kind of just on ramping and taking that business still off. And look, man, look, when you got this many babies to feed, bro, you start trying to figure out how to hustle and
Yeah,
um
right.
and whatnot and make it because like I'm a hood pastor with a hood pastor salary, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And whatnot. And my wife, she thank God, for her being an electrical engineer and stuff or whatever. But yeah, so we've made a lot of things work or whatever. And a lot of that stuff is coming to the church too, because we've done merch and been able to kind of really market and kind of make an identity in the city or whatever, that goes outside of even the Christian market. That's what we named the church, the Bill Church, because I wanted something that would put us in conversation with people who aren't believers and that celebrated the city. And so people are like, oh, the Bill, that's dope. Let me wear that. Then
yeah,
later on, they're like, oh, this is a church? Like, yeah, it's a church, man. But we represent the city, do it how you do it. So building those kind of bridges. But you know, I think that I think that with business, I've always had this desire to be a business person. But I think that I really like when I had my store, my friends used to always tell me, they were like, Jay, you're a pastor, bro. I'm like, bro, I'm not a pastor, I'm a businessman. They were like, bro, you keep giving the money out the register to people to help people, and we could barely pay rent. You keep locking up the store and locking out customers because you're in here praying for people or counseling some young boys or whatever. And after a while, I started to see it, even though I was fighting it. I'm like, yeah, bro, like business guys don't do this. And
yeah,
I'm like, the money isn't the bottom line for me at all, or whatever. I'm like, I'll make it disappear to preach the gospel to people or whatever, and whatnot. But I had an artist or whatever named Uncle Reese. He dropped a song called "Worship Till I Pass Out," and he worked in my store, and I funded his album and curated the whole album. And Sony Records ended up, throwing us a record deal, flying us to New York. And it was up there when I was up there. This is my third time having a record label, and it never worked. You know what I'm saying? And it finally worked. And while I'm sitting up there, bro, I could hear ministry calling me clear as day.
mm,
It's like, God, I'm like, God, we finally made it. And he's like, yeah, you did, but this ain't the route you about to take. And I could hear it. I could literally, it's like, it was too clear. So I was almost excited that I made it, but kind of sad at the same time.
yeah,
But I was like, God got something waiting for me that's different. And I love it. It's been the hardest thing, but I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be,
yeah.
and it definitely is true to my being and stuff.
For listeners, that leaders, I mean, I've got a mix of people who are in ministry, pastoring, business, life transitions, all of those kind of things. When I think about life transitions, I've had some transitions in my life. From first 15 years of my life, I was a high school, college basketball coach. Then I
Mhm.
transitioned into ministry, into what if people don't know what ministry is, church work, right? And I
Yeah.
did that for 25 years. And then 2 years ago, I stepped out of that, and I'm stepping into being an entrepreneur, a business. Uh, owner, and developing a business, right? And so those transitions, man, they're not easy to kind of figure out. They're
Yeah.
not easy to navigate. We certainly can't do it on our own. We really need people in our corner that knows us, that can
Yeah.
help us navigate that. But when I think about you navigating from all the different things that you were doing, entrepreneurial, business, savvy, creative, and then transitioning into ministry, and transitioning in and taking all of that in as a pastor, like I know that we don't have a lot of time, but can you share kind of what happened? Because it's pretty amazing as you stepped in, and kind of the 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 beginnings of the Ville and the transition of that.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. So, my man Matt Jensen, whatever, Matt came from Mars Hill, and he kind of left before everything kind of blew to pieces, but he planted our church. And he literally I was in my clothing store one day, and I was in the middle of some, beef with this dude. Like it was about to go down. We in the room in the store, quiet, staring at each other face to face. And Matt walks in, and Matt just looks at me and goes, "Man, I'm from Seattle. I'm here to play in the church, and I think you're the other piece of the puzzle." And I was like, bro, no, I'm not. Who are you? You know what I mean? And lo and behold,
Now
I'm sitting
Matt's a
around,
white dude.
white dude, bro. Never seen him in my life,
Yeah,
ever. He
walking
just
into
just
your
walks in. Just walks in. And don't even know he's in the middle of some, anybody else would have walked in like, oh, they got some heat going on right now.
yeah,
I need to slide out. Hey, what's up, fella? You know what I'm saying? Right in the middle of it. And so, I ended up walking through helping them plant the church and everything else. But I was like, yeah, I'll kind of give you some direction, but that kind of thing or whatever. And he was a brilliant guy, or whatever and stuff. And man, and the church blew up really, really quick. It had a couple hundred people really, really fast. And you had me coming from the store and this kind of influence kind of in the streets from that side. Matt being a white guy, his family, business folks or whatever and stuff. So this was just a mash of like two different worlds. And it was beautiful. But then we started having, man, like as all the racial stuff in the country started getting really, really hot, it started showing its face inside of the church. And
mm,
but it started with me and Matt first. And but we saw it coming. We had this pact and we said, bro, we're both here for 3 years. I don't care what happens. Nobody can leave. Man, sometimes we get in a staff meeting and we would be going crazy and the staff will be waiting outside or whatever. But we had this pact or whatever. I mean, it could get really ugly. And it was racial stuff at times because the proximity was exposing our hearts. And
yeah.
we were true to our bond. We couldn't run like most people do when it gets hard. So we had to stay like this. And we would sit in a room sometimes for an hour, huffing and puffing, staring at each other, mad as I don't know what. And then the spirit of God will show up and both of us be like, that was disgusting what I just said out of my mouth to you. And it happened time and time again. And we saw how ugly our sin was, but we also saw the Holy Spirit do something that was beyond both of us. And that really helped us navigate the people in our church through some of the issues they were having. Long story short, Matt ended up leaving maybe, about a little bit after that, 3 years. And when he preached his last sermon, he stood up in front of the church. I had a family member pass away that morning, so I wasn't in the service, but my wife and kids were in there. But he gets up in front of the church and Matt says, because people, they announced that I was, going to be the lead pastor, and people were calling him. They texting him, asking questions, asking for my credentials. So he gets up in front of the church. He goes, we done had a whole lot of people leading this church in all kind of positions. He said, I ain't never had y'all call and ask a question about people's education and none of that. And he goes, but y'all want to know about Jay's background and everything else as if y'all don't know him. He's been running the church forever. And he said, he goes, why didn't y'all ask about me? I guess y'all just chopped it up to me being white, that I had the ability to run this. You didn't need to ask questions. And when I tell you he laid into the church, he
Mm.
laid into him. He said, he said, our church is known for diversity all over the city. And he said, but it's the black folks in here. He said, I don't know how in the world y'all deal with us white folks. He said, I don't get how y'all have the endurance and the mercy to deal with our racism. And he said, I'm the worst one in here. And he said, I need to repent and it's disgusting. And he said, I'm about to go to this altar right here. And he said, when I leave this church, I already know what you white people are going to do. He said, y'all are going to pick up and leave. He said, but before you leave, I challenge you to come up here and give me one reason, one biblical reason that you have a right to leave this church. And he said, so I just want you to know, if you can't give one, to know that you're leaving because of racism and it's sin. That's your motivation. Man, I'm telling you, I
Wow.
think the church would have ended if he didn't
Yeah,
have that conversation. So those are kind of the guts
man.
and courage and bravery that have been such a important part of our story, and whatnot.
Wow. So I've never met Matt. I've heard you talk about him and share that story. To me, it's an amazing demonstration of what it means to no matter what, white, black, brown, whatever, but when
Yeah,
you're in a seat of a powerful seat, a seat of authority, right?
yeah,
For most leaders, we're trying to protect that. we're trying to, we don't steward it with open hands. We
Yeah.
clinch onto it, and like we got to hold
Yep.
on to this, what God gave us, right, and everything. And man, it was just a beautiful picture of stewardship, of going,
Yeah.
hey, I realize I have this, and I'm willing to transition. I'm willing to pass that on to somebody else, right? And
Yeah.
it's rare to see that in the church world. It's rare to see it in the business world.
Very.
But
Yeah.
man, what an incredible picture of that.
Yeah. Amazing leader, bro. Amazing. One of brave leader for real. He really
Yeah.
was. Yeah.
Jay, man, this is the locker room, the leader's locker room. Let's talk a little bit about leadership. Man, you see it, you've seen it at home, you see it in the community, you see it at church. Um, but when we think about leaderships, where do you think leaders most often get stuck when it
Yeah.
comes to their leadership, either by where we've had it or by observation? Like so many times, leaders, we get stuck and we can't get out of the ditch. Where do you see a couple of moments where you see that with
Yeah.
leaders?
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I think as I'm in a season where like, I'm really leaning into being teachable. And, that may have been true a couple of years ago, but it's becoming more and more true. And as I shut up a little bit and I become more teachable, um, leadership starts to feel like freedom. It used to feel like anxiety and just fear.
Mm,
And it used to feel like, I think for a lot of people, it's this posture of, oh my God, I have to do this and I have to do that and everything else. But man, the pinnacle is like this, and we try to lead from this top thing, which usually results in this kind of control.
yeah.
And but when you do servant leadership, like our CCDA brothers really push us to or whatever, right? You're able to transfer leadership really easy. You're able to build leaders in a different way, and you also are not. There's this thing where leaders are always they're trying to build this kind of concept and idea, but they really have kind of push God out of the conversation. Like it's like I know best or whatever, right? And it's the same thing with urban context. It's hard for people to come in and say, no, community, you tell us what's needed and we're gonna, be teachable. But it's hard for us to give up our cold hands, unclutch our kind of idea of what it should be. And I think leaders fall into that that pit of control. When you're serving, you know what I'm saying? To me, you manage your emotions a little bit different too, or whatever. Like where I have a situation with somebody in church, I need to have a hard conversation with one of my leaders. When I think about it from control, I'm like frustrated. And I'm
Mm,
just thinking, like, hey, you're supposed to do this, this, and this. When I'm thinking about it from serving, I'm going, okay, this is an opportunity to actually increase their skills on leadership. They miss something, but
yeah.
this is about control. So I don't have to be mad and get mad at them. I get
Right.
to teach them. I'm about to, okay, something has showed up or whatever, where there's some things or whatever that you might miss or you're intimidated. We're gonna build some muscles on. I'm serving you right now. Like I get to serve you with something that I know. And so I did that the wrong way for years and
Yeah.
years and years and whatnot. You people have to trust. I think for me it was very important to pray to God for the courage and to lead, because you got to have brave lips, man. You got to be able to say what needs to be said, but you need to say it in the right spirit.
Right.
And even when sometimes when I had the right way to say it, I didn't want to admit this as a man, but I didn't have the heart to say it.
Yeah.
So I had to humble myself to go, God, I'm out here acting like a punk on some things. I actually need, but I'm not stranded in that, because I can come to you and go, give me the heart to lead, give me the
Mhm.
courage to lead, give me the boldness to lead, give me the wherewithal, send me teachers. And so I think guys get stuck thinking it's all on them and it's all about them.
John Maxwell says that leadership is not about position, but more about posture.
Yeah. Definitely
right?
feel that. Yep.
And when we thinking about, our brand, our position, that
Mm.
what we have to, what, and, one of the things that I talk a lot about is what's it like on the other side of me? Leader, are
Yeah.
you willing to ask the question,
Mm.
what's it like on the other side of you? Dot, 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 really? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like on the other side of you? We could do that. I work in with several different organizations, and I say that about their department is the
Yeah.
HR. What's it like on the other side of HR? What's it like on the other side of financial aid? What's it like on the other side of calling in a dentist? Or what's it like on the other side of the lobster shack and getting like,
Mm.
are you curious? Because there's
Yeah.
intel, right? And when I think about you and just that willingness to posture ourselves in a servant leadership role
Yeah.
versus this control central.
Yeah.
Man, what if anybody had the right to pull out the I'm in control and do it my way, it was Jesus.
Yeah. Straight up.
But he didn't come to control, he didn't come to command, he came to connect.
Yep.
And so his whole posture was completely upside down, frustrated the daylights out of all the church folks, the
Yeah.
Pharisees, because he was hanging out with people that he shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
And I love that, Jay. Jay, what's a leadership lesson that what's something in your life where you got it in the moment it felt like a failure, like man, but looking back, you're like best thing that ever happened to me was that failure.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I just was doing a vision meeting with our churches recently, and I was pulling up back old pictures so I could just show them the journey, the stuff that we've been through. And I was showing them, like we got I mean, literally one day we got an orange sticker from the city on our building, and they kicked us out the building. There's like it's condemned, you can't go in, and we were renting. And I remember the next Sunday, we had to meet on the playground that we installed at this building we were renting in the backyard. And I had pictures of it, and everybody's out there. And, I was telling the church, I said, you notice I'm not really in the pictures like leading that much. I said, I could think I came to the mic and be like, God's with us, and backed off because man, I felt like I was about to throw up. You know what I mean? I was sick to
Mm,
my stomach. And so I had, one of my elders kind of leading and everything else. But I was telling my church, I said, I felt like such a failure. And I said, but man, these parts of the journey were, it's where we got our guts from. It's where we saw God is faithful. It's where we learned that we can have church anywhere. And it became my mantra through hard seasons. I would just say, I'm like, if we have the Bible and we have us, we have church. You don't got to be a building and everything. And I had to say that because we lost our building twice. We lost the buildings twice. That's why we ended up going to buy one because we were renting and based on what the landlord was doing. And they're like, we're not fixing this. We're not putting a sprinkler system. But I'm like, to keep the church together and lead. And I'm learning how to lead in the midst of this turmoil.
right.
I'm like, I had to define for my people a church is us in the word of God. That's it. We're fully a church. We
Mm,
we could we could meet on the corner. It could be whatever, and so things like that or whatever. Where like it looked ugly, but like man, I'm so grateful for it because it gave us grit. It gave
yeah,
us grit. You
man,
know.
that's great. Jay, hey, let's go full circle. You've got 11 kiddos, adult all the way down to preschool. I know we were this past summer, we get a chance, there's a group of us,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
we get together and we get to spend a couple of days
Oh
and
yeah.
those days we're out on a boat and you're fishing. You're a
Yeah.
fish. I'm more of a watcher. I'm the photograph guy. I'll take the picture, right?
Yeah.
But I'll never forget we were on the boat this summer down in South Carolina. It was a beautiful day, and
Hmm.
and we were talking about family values,
Yeah.
and we were talking. I said, how do you lead? how do you like there's such a broad span of I mean, you got Gen Z, and you got
No,
multiple
everything.
generations going on in that place, right? And you shared with me something that I thought, man, and it really impacted me. I thought it was so good, and it's you guys have some family values that the kids brought together. Could you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Look, and I don't have my list in front of me or whatever and stuff, so I'm looking at it while I'm talking to you. But there's a couple things that we do um, as a family that is tremendous or whatever. And so one, so you got to think about it. When you got 11 kids or whatever, it is hard to get time in with all of them and everything else. And so one of the things we do that's huge is at our table, we have this thing where whoever you're sitting next to, that person has to tell you like two or three things that they love about you, and so we go around the room, and you talking about an identity and confidence believer out of this world, because we may do this maybe once every month, sometimes once every 2 months or something like that, sometimes twice a month, but they hear these different things from their siblings. So, of course, their siblings, they bicker, they do everything like everybody else. But when we stop playing, they get to hear what they really think. And so I have my son, Jules or whatever. Jules is, he's like 8 years old or whatever, and he's really small in his classroom. But everybody always goes, yo, you're like a giant, like you are like you like a little kid, but you like a man. And he thinks that he is a giant. He plays football with bigger kids. He plays basketball with bigger kids. He thinks he can do anything in the world, but his identity is being just verified by 10 of his siblings and his mom and his dad or whatever. And so that exercise is huge.
Mm,
And we do that because me and my wife desire to put that inside of them. But like when you got this many kids, you have to maximize the moments.
yeah.
So when we say something, we try to say something really deep. We try to make sure they feel really seen. And when we hug them, we try to hug them really, really hard. And so that's a big part or whatever. Some of our family stuff, like what we did with the values or whatever and stuff. I don't have everything in front of me, and I just I can't remember anything with all these kids was off my head, but what we did when we did our family values is we had all of the kids come with them to the table. Like, and we did this over several months or whatever. They would come to the table with what they felt should be a value. We would vote on it and how it identified our family. And then they would have to bring three definitions, and we will all make a definition for each word or whatever. So loyalty would be one. Of compassion.
Mm,
Like we say that in our family, like, they're like, man, we're always like feeding people and like stopping, taking care, like giving clothes to homeless people and everything else or whatever. And, the responsibilities one or whatever. We're like, you got to take personal responsibility or whatever for yourself or whatever. We're not victims. We will make excuses and we go fix it. And so and the thing is, the way I pulled them into this conversation was my son found a picture on Instagram of this old man and his wife, and they had 11 kids. And in the picture, you see, I mean, they had their great grandkids, maybe some great great grands, but man, it was hundreds of people in the picture. And it was just from these two. And
wow.
so when my kids saw that, they said, "Oh my God, is this what's coming?" I said, "It might be." I said, "It's me and your mom, and then it's 11 of y'all."
Y'all got to
And
get
and I
busy at some point.
yeah. And I asked them, I said, wouldn't you hate like, I said, y'all are gonna be the aunts and uncles in this. I said, wouldn't you hate if like one of these little kids that's, like, wouldn't you hate to see them just like strung out on drugs or just doing bad in life or whatever? And they're like, yeah. I said, well, what can we do
Mm,
to, how people go, I'm a Harris, I'm part of the Harris family. I'm like, I get it, but what does it mean? How do
yeah.
we define it and shape them even down the road that we might not even meet? But it becomes like not that we just a Harris, not a last name, but what are the identifiers? And that's how we pull them into, okay, let's get to work. Let's make the definition. So it gave them a way to look down the road. Because my son, I said, where you want to be in life? I said, when one of these nieces and nephews come and tap you and be like, Unc, I need shoes for football or whatever. I said, you want to be broke with it, or where you want to be? He said, nah, I want to be able to help. Like, I mean, I said, well, look how many it is. So what decisions you need to make right now to be on point. So he used it as a metric to help them dream and think about how important the values are, you know?
Man, Jay, I love that. So oftentimes we only think about the rules,
Yeah. Yeah.
but what you're
I've been there too.
is
Yeah.
you got to have a few rules, but you
Yeah.
also got to have some behaviors. You got to
Yeah.
have some values like, hey, this is how the Harris family, this is how we roll. When we
Yeah.
show up in front of any face in any space, this is who we are.
Yeah.
And we're not going to bat 1,000, but this is who we're aspiring to be. And we inspire each other, man. Dude,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
Love it, man. Jay, hey, I know you are from Jax. You're always, big evangelist. What's one of your favorite things about the Ville?
Man, I think it's one of those cities or whatever, like it's on the up and there's a lot of building going on right now. But it's one of those cities where like you can still be the first person to do something.
Mm,
And it's not that I have so much ambition to build anymore, but like I've always loved that about it. Like you can go somewhere like Miami, go somewhere like up north, New York or Jersey or something, see something, and come down here and still be the first person to do it. So I really love that, man. I love that about it. It moves at a pace. I used to didn't think I like things moving too slow. But I like to go travel, put my foot, in the city or whatever, go somewhere that's fast. But I like to when that plane lands back here, man, I love it, and it's slow for the kids or whatever. It doesn't make me feel anxious, like I got to keep up with everything in the world, and it lets me kind of do my two step, which is pretty much church and the community and then home. You know what I mean?
I
Yeah,
love it, man.
yeah,
Hey, one last thing. For leaders out here, for the leader who's tired or questioning their calling, or maybe they're stuck, what would advice would you give them to take? How would you just invite them to take their next best step? What would be one thing that you would offer them?
yeah. Um, my biggest thing would be number one to cease from working so hard, and
Mm,
I would say cease for a moment from working so hard. So stop and take a breather, and then I would look around at the people God has actually put around you to actually teach, to pour into you. If that looks like counseling or whatever the case may be, but man, I think that we have to figure this out alone,
mm,
and sometimes people standing on the outside of you, they have the best perspective. And the things that you can't just connect the dots on, for them, they go, bro, man, we could connect this all day. We see it like it's everybody sees it around you, and so I started going to counseling, it's been about over 4 years now.
mm,
My other pastors that I had on staff and my elder, they were on me like crazy for years. Jay, you got to go to counseling. Jay, you got to go to counseling. And
mm,
I'm like, man, I'm good. Like, and man, when I finally went to counseling, it's been the best thing I've ever done in my life. Man, if I had $1 million, I would have paid $1 million for it. And it's influenced and changed every aspect of my life. But it's when I stopped and I listened to those around me and I trusted that they had a perspective that I couldn't see. I'm thinking like, what in the world do y'all see or whatever? I didn't
mm,
think that I needed counseling. They knew that I needed counseling. I called one of my brothers, my man Rodney Gonzalez. I call him probably once every 3 months, and I go, brother, thank you for
mm.
staying on me. He would send me a list of counselors. When you
Mm.
called him yet? And he did it for years. I
Wow.
thank him so much. I said, bro, do you understand what you've done with my marriage, with my relationship with my children, with my church? My church goes, man, we love hearing your sermon. It sounds like we feel like we're going to counseling for free. We can hear your counseling in the word and the way you, and so, so for a lot of guys, it's like, stop trying to lead and let yourself be led sometimes. You might find more rest in it and peace
Wow.
and encouragement than you ever imagined or whatever and stuff.
Dude, man, that's great. Jay, man, thank you. What a gift. Your life, your leadership, your faithfulness. Man, it's a challenge to us and encourage to us, man. Thank you for coming on today. And for you out there listening, if if you're ever in the Ville, What's the church? What's the church? The website. Where do we find the Ville?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Ville.church. It's just THEVILLE.church. It's the same Ville Church for Instagram, Ville Church for Facebook and all that stuff, whatever, man. But yeah, we love for you to pop up on us, anybody, whatever. Slide
Man,
through.
I can't wait to get down there. I've been talking about it. One of these days, I got to get
Yeah,
down
it's gonna
there,
happen.
hang
It's
out,
gonna happen.
and chop it up with you guys. Well, hey, today, if this was helpful for you today, this discussion, man, I hope that you go subscribe, give us a thumbs up, send this to a friend. And leaders, if you're feeling that pull, that sense that, man, 2026 needs to look different than 2025, I want to personally invite you to join this. I think it's really helpful. It's what I take all of the leaders I get to serve. 26 is coming quick. The 21-day accelerator. It's 21 days of clarity, focus, momentum, designed to help you enter into 2026 as the most intentional, rooted version of yourself. You can grab it at bcleadershipco.com. Well, hey, as always, stay curious, lead with trust, and keep taking your next best step. We'll see you next week.
Love you, Brett. Thanks, brother.